you were with Sergeant Gibson. He was your superior officer, correct?
He was.
What was the relationship like leading up to that night as far as superior subordinate?
Uncomfortable. It
Okay.
was. We initially started off strictly professional. Over time, as you get to know officers, I mean, at the end of the day, he's an officer, he's just higher rank, and so you begin to build that camaraderie or that friendship, and so it had started to build into a friendship, and then it had gone too far, and the second that it had gone too far, I tried reporting it, and so initially it started out professional. So at Brick House, we'd sat down, we were having a drink, or a couple there at Brick House, and then he had gotten up and moved over to my side. There was actually a woman there that I went to high school with, and I'd actually walked over to her, and because I could not remember her name. I had a Spanish class with her, but I could not remember her name. And so I walked up, I had asked her for her name, I asked for her forgiveness and me forgetting that, and I got her phone number, and then, but I messaged her on Facebook Messenger now, so I asked her if she wanted to go out that night, or to go hang out that night, because I was single at the time. I was a guy, and so once I had done that and I'd gotten back to the table, Chris Gibson, he'd gotten upset that I was trying to leave. He had brought up a scenario where he and another officer were hanging out at one point, and they had left him alone. And so he brought that to my attention, saying, "Yeah, you're going to be just like him. You're going to leave me here alone." My therapist would say I'm a people pleaser. I have been apparently my entire life after an assault that took place when I was younger. So I've learned that pleasing people is easier than creating rifts. And so I didn't want to upset him, so I said, "Hey, I won't leave. I'll stay here." But I was still trying. I was messaging her trying to leave. And so I would have explained that later. But it hadn't gotten to that point. So he'd walked around because he kept asking to see my phone. I know that the media had reported that there was an argument over a cell phone. There was no argument. It was him wanting to see my phone. He kept trying to take my phone. It was,
Why do you think he's trying to do that?
because he wanted to see who I was talking to, who I was trying to go home with. Because I was texting my ex at the time, and then I was also texting the girl that I had just met there at the bar. And so, yeah, he wanted to see my phone. I wasn't very comfortable with that, and so I didn't want to show him that. That's when he had gotten up and had come to my side of the table.
At that point, do you think it was jealousy?
Absolutely, wholeheartedly, and. Obviously, you could see in the video footage, where he'd reach under the table to try and grab my hand, and I'm always uncomfortable with it. My wife would tell you, I'm not a physical touch kind of person. I do not like physical touch. And so when he had done that, you can actually see me lean away because I'm so uncomfortable, but I don't want to create that issue. I don't want to have to confront my superior, the person who's got hold of my entire career. My whole future is in his hands. I was on the Marine Patrol unit. He was the Marine Patrol commander. I was an officer on midnight shift. He was my direct line supervisor. I wanted to be an investigator. He was an investigator. I wanted to join the SWAT team. He wrote me a stellar recommendation for the SWAT team, and I'd gone through the tryouts. He had such a hold on my future. This isn't somebody I wanted to upset. By any means. And
Do you think this praise and these recommendations that he was writing, were they leverage?
Absolutely.
Okay.
100%. I have no doubt on that.
That he was going to say, "Well, hey, I gave you a good recommendation, let's
Come hang out.
romantic." Right.
No, I don't. He never brought up being romantic or anything like that. It was just the body language.
Not objectively, but just subjectively. Did you feel you were drunk?
No.
Did you feel that he was drunk?
No.
Okay. So you guys were both in command of your faculties.
Absolutely.
Okay. Did you feel physically threatened inside the bar?
When you say physically threatened, I immediately think of my life is in danger for some reason. No, I did not feel that my life was in danger in the bar. I had felt very physically uncomfortable. I did not like that he had gotten so close. I did not like that he had reached under the table and grabbed my hand, which is evident, as you can see, when we had gone outside and he kept trying to grab me and touch me. I've said enough times, please stop. I'm not a touch person. Please stop touching me.
Okay.
I don't.
So then you walk out to the parking lot, which is adjacent to Brick House.
Yes, sir.
And then what happens? Are you at his car or your car?
No, we'd walk back to my truck.
To your car, okay. What happens there?
At that point, I don't feel comfortable enough to drive. And so I had immediately gotten into the driver's seat, and it was a very cold night that night. I started the vehicle for the heat, strictly. Obviously, my intent was not to go anywhere. I stayed there the entire time. I never left. As a matter of fact, I left a running vehicle. But I reclined my seat back to sleep off the alcohol so that I did feel comfortable enough to drive.
Okay. And then did he come knocking on the door, or what happened?
No, he'd welcomed himself in the vehicle. There was
On
no.
the other side? On the
Yes, sir, on the passenger side. Yeah.
Okay, so once Gibson gets in the car, he's in the passenger seat, you're in the driver's seat, you've got the heat on, correct?
Yes, sir.
Car's running.
Yep.
What did he do or say that put you at unease?
Oh, case is open.
Something I'm not very comfortable talking about. I will say that I was sexually assaulted. I don't want to go into details. It's just. I left the vehicle after that had happened. I immediately left the vehicle.
So you're standing next to the car, or did you walk?
I got out and I tried to walk away.
Okay.
I left my running vehicle after what had happened.
Mm-hmm.
He got out of the vehicle and had made it all the way around the vehicle before I was able to just leave. He had grabbed me and pinned me back up against the truck. He grabbed my wrists and pinned me back up against
Is he
the truck.
physically bigger than you are? Because you're not a
Yes.
small guy.
No, he's bigger.
Yeah, okay.
I wouldn't say it's an astronomical amount bigger, but he is slightly bigger than I am.
Okay.
And he had control of, he's an officer with a lot of training, and I'm an officer, with a little bit of training, but he had grabbed the same way almost like an officer would to detain somebody. When you grab the wrists, there's certain positions that you can grab in a wrist to prevent movement or anything. And so he had grabbed my wrist and he had pinned me up against the vehicle. And I just kept saying, "Chris, stop, Chris, please stop." And a lot of it is, I don't want to say fuzzy because it makes it sound like I don't remember it well. But there are certain parts that stick out a lot more than others. Like I remember his warm breath. I remember the stippling of his beard on my neck. There's just certain parts of it that I
Was he trying
remember.
to kiss you?
Yeah, yes. But it felt like he was doing more than that. And so I kept trying to just push and push and push, and I couldn't push hard enough. It wasn't working. I don't know. I didn't realize I was that weak, I guess. But I kept pushing and pushing and pushing, and he wouldn't stop. At one point, I'd finally, I guess, leaned enough into it to where it broke the contact, and that is where I had taken steps back. I actually took several steps backwards. And at that point, all that was going through my mind was that I was 7 years old again, and I was being assaulted. I was sitting there, and I was like, it was on repeat.
Okay.
And I'd already said several times, I kept telling him to stop. He wouldn't listen. I said it a million times. I couldn't repeat it any more times if I tried. I used every ounce of my breath. And when I'd taken those steps back, I had drawn my gun and held it in a sole position or pointed downward. And I started to hold my arm out and say, "Chris, stop. I'm serious.
So your
Stop."
right hand-
It wasn't just the feeling, up here that I had felt. It was his hands across my belt. It's almost like caressing me in a way.
Okay.
So he's reaching, his hands are going across my body down toward my private area, my genitals. Is when he had felt, or when I had felt that he had realized that I had a gun right there. That's when he felt the gun. And I'm not sure if he was trying to grab it or if he had jostled it or what was going on.
This was not an attempt to disarm you or something like that.
Well, that's what I didn't know because it had stopped, or I had gotten frantic, I guess, when he had gotten down and had felt the gun. When he had hit my weapon is when I was like,
Holstered? Was it in?
it was holstered.
Okay, all right.
But it was under my shirt. I'm sorry? No, my own personal.
Personal weapon. Okay.
And it was in an appendix. And I guess it was when he was trying to reach down here. And he had reached and he hit the gun. He hit the holster, and that's when because I didn't know what he was going to do when he found the gun. I have no idea.
Was he armed?
I'm not sure if he had a firearm on him or not. I know that we all carry, and it's a common practice even when we went to the bowling alley, even anywhere that we go. You're an officer, right? You don't know who you're going to run into on the street. You carry.
Right.
And so I'm not sure if he was or not. I had assumed that he was.
I was going to say,
Yes.
he typically, when he was,
Every officer that I know carries when they're off duty.
yeah.
And so when he had gotten to that point, that's when I'd broken the contact and I'd stepped back because I didn't know what he was going to do. I had already said a million times to stop. He was overpowering me at this point. I didn't know if he was going to try and take it. I didn't know what was going on. And so I had taken a step back and I had drawn into this whole position. I'd held my arm out and I said, Chris, stop. Chris, I'm serious, stop. And I just kept repeating. I was stuck in what's referred to as an OODA loop, right? I'm experiencing a traumatic event here. So I just keep repeating the same things over and over and over. I said, Chris, stop, I'm serious, Chris, stop. And that's when he had charged me. When he had charged me, he grabbed my gun and punched me in the face. And almost simultaneously, he grabbed I guess with his left hand, I'm not sure if I was in his position. It may have been the other way. No, I think he grabbed my gun in my gun hand with his left hand, had punched me in the face, and then we started to spin in circles. Now he's trying to take my gun. During the struggle, when we're spinning, a round goes off or a bullet. The gun had discharged. I wasn't sure if it was my gun that discharged. I wasn't sure if he had drawn at that point after he hit me in the face. I wasn't sure what happened. I know that a gunshot just went off and I'm in a fight over my gun right now.
In combat at this point. Okay.
And so when the round had gone off, I immediately went into my life is in danger. This guy is attacking me. He's trying to take my gun. He won't stop. When he grabbed my hand and attacked, I guess he pulled it up. And he either pulled the trigger, or when he grabbed my hand, it squeezed.
Okay.
Or he, at that time, he drew. I didn't know at that time. I didn't know if he had drawn a gun or anything like that. I just know a cartridge had gone off. I remember for some reason, it was just a fight. It was a tussle, and we may not have been spinning and spinning and spinning, but it was, I know, at least a rotation or two. And when the round had gone off, now my life is in danger. So I shot once, and he kept fighting. He didn't stop. He didn't do anything. He just kept going. And so now he's attacking me, and he's trying to take my gun. And then a round goes off. A cartridge goes off, and when that round goes off, I'm frantic at this point. Did I just get shot? Is he shooting at me? I don't know what's going on. So I had shot once because of the round going off and somebody trying to actively disarm me in fear for my life. I would say do a half rotation or a spin. We're struggling still. He didn't stop. I had shot one more time, and then he did what I remember to be like a little jump almost. And then he had finally broken contact, and that's what immediately, the threat is no longer, no need to shoot anymore. Everything is.
So 2 rounds were fired.
I fired 2 rounds.
Okay. And that includes the initial, when he's trying, that doesn't include.
No, there were 3 total.
So the gun, there was 3 spent rounds from your gun.
Yes, sir.
Is that right? Okay. First is when he's fighting for your gun.
Yes.
The number 2 and number 3 are voluntary on your part.
Yes, sir.
Correct. Where did they end up? Did they strike him both? Did both of them strike him?
Both did strike him.
Did the first shot strike him?
I'm not sure. According to,
Across his neck.
I believe,
It was Grace.
Okay.
I believe it was a graze.
Where did the bullets 2 and 3 strike him?
One in the upper chest, and then one at abdomen. So I would say maybe here, or here and here, maybe here, here,
At that
and here.
point, does he back off? I mean, what
Yep.
happened?
So that's when he did that. Like what I remember for some reason in my head to be a little jump, and then he had ran to the back of a vehicle.
Okay. All right.
And so
And that was the end of the incident, pretty much.
other than I
One.
called 911. I went back there to check on him. I had started CPR when he had fallen out. I believe you can hear that on the 911 call. I said he just fell out, and I started compressions. I believe you can hear me counting with my compressions because that's just training kicking in.
When you say falling out, is that out of consciousness?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Just to make sure.
But I was screaming for people to come help before that. I was trying to get any help I could get.
And you ended up in jail, correct?
I did
For what, 3 weeks?
for 23 days.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I remember. All right.
I believe if I'm correct. If not 23, it was between 21 and 25. It was about 3 weeks that I was incarcerated.
That was a lot of time to think about what happened.
That was
Yeah.
the longest 23 year 3 weeks of my life.
What conclusions did you come to during those 3 weeks?
That I can't believe that had happened. I mean, I'd been an officer in Newport News before that. I'd have been an officer in James City County where I've had guns pulled on me. Especially Newport News where bullets are flying by, people shooting in apartment complexes, and never once in a million years did I ever think I'd ever have to shoot anybody. I've drawn my gun several times where required, where necessary. I've never ever pulled the trigger, and I've got body cam footage from times when I was an officer in Newport News where any other officer who viewed that camera said, "Dude, you had every right." When somebody after a vehicle pursuit and they get out and they lay on the floor and then they jump up, lunge in the car, and come back out with a cell phone. I mean, you don't know it's a cell phone. You have that split-second decision to process that. And so I've always had wonderful restraint. I've never ever pulled the trigger until I absolutely had to.
And a fellow officer at that.
Yes.
Yeah. When we talked last August with your attorney, with your dad, this was a career choice for you. You wanted to do this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does it feel like now?
It feels like I was abandoned. It feels like I was thrown under a rug to help the higher ranking officers. What it feels like. I mean, I had a stellar record. I did amazing. The only 2 times that I ever got in trouble, I told myself. Mm-hmm. I called and reported I was late to work, and the other time I made a decision that was on a gray line, but I called and reported it myself. Mm-hmm. So I've never had an integrity issue. I've always told the truth, even when it came down to me getting in trouble. I mean, I've always told the truth. Mm-hmm. I had a stellar performance. All my evals, my performance evals were amazing. I had stellar recommendations for the SWAT team from several officers. I had gotten.
One of them was Gibson, right?
Yes.
Okay.
One of them was Gibson. And then, I'd gotten it's either certificate of achievement or I assisted in saving, a life and got,
commendations.
Yeah, commendation for that. Yeah. And then,
sure. How prepared were you to go to trial this week? Had it turned out that way? I know it didn't turn out that way, but what were some of your fears and concerns going into this week?
That the truth wouldn't have come out, and that corruption and cover-ups would have taken place. I know the truth. I was there that night.
Are you prepared for the civil side of this? It is going to end up in courtroom, probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I would say that I'm prepared.
Mm-hmm. Will you testify?
You said, will I?
Yes.
If required.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. I don't see any other way for the truth to come out. Ideally, I would have had a long-standing career there. I became a cop, to show people that not all cops were bad. I'd put homeless people in hotels over the holidays. I would buy food for them out of my own pocket and, bathing supplies. As a matter of fact, I had gotten rewarded in an energy drink from my command staff at that point for doing that, because they saw the total amount of money that I spent out of my own pocket to do this, and they had rewarded me in the same amount of money in energy drinks, which is, at that time, I was drinking a lot of energy drinks because I was a midnight shift officer. It's, I loved helping people. I loved showing people the compassion that people have, and that it wasn't all to put people in prison, or I didn't enjoy putting anybody in prison. You're taking somebody's livelihood away. Or taking them to jail or charge them. It's not what you want to do as an officer. What you want to do as an officer is be able to relate to that person and convince them, hey, what you're doing isn't the right steps. There are better ways to do this, things like that. That is the goal as an officer. Your goal isn't to arrest people and take them to jail. Your goal is to be able to relate to these people and show compassion and kindness. Mm-hmm.
Do you think Chris Gibson should be behind bars?
Absolutely. Had I not had or have a child due in less than 2 months and a wife at home, I absolutely would have taken this to trial. There's no way that I could put her in a position to have to raise even the smallest chance I can't let those consequences fall on her. Now, convincing 12 people that I've never met to know and believe that I wouldn't hurt a soul unless absolutely necessary is not something I was willing to risk with a child on the way. The only reason that I took this plea was so that I could be a husband and a father. If I wasn't in that position, I absolutely would have taken it to trial because we have a very strong self-defense case. You know, and I mean, what do you do in that scenario? Somebody's trying to take your gun, they've just assaulted you, not only sexually, but physically. I mean, what do you do in that scenario? I was distraught at the fact that I had hurt somebody. I'd never wanted to hurt somebody a day in my life. While saying that statement, I did what I had to do to go home that night.